Hi, Bill Tanner, Features Editor, Linchpin Media. Today, we're talking storage, specifically raising the bar for cloud services and enterprise storage. Here to discuss this with me are Eric Herzog, CMO of Infinidat, and John White, COO of US Signal. So, if you could, first of all, Eric, introduce yourself and tell us a little about Infinidat.
Okay, great. Well, Bill, again, thank you very much for hosting us. I'm Eric Herzog. I'm the CMO of Infinidat. Prior to Infinidat, I was a CMO and global channels for the IBM storage division. And before that, Senior Vice President of Product Management and Product Marketing at EMC. So Infinidat does high-end enterprise storage. We don't do entry or mid-range products. The bulk of our customers are either the Global Fortune 1000 or cloud service providers and managed service providers such as US Signal. So I'll pass it over to John. John?
Hey, yeah, John White. Been in the cloud industry pretty much my whole life. Started in private cloud back in '04, before cloud was really a thing. Did a stint at AWS, and then back at US Signal building infrastructure again. US Signal has been around since 2001. Started out as a network company, focused there. Started building data centers, like a lot of companies evolved into, offering cloud services, managed services like backup, security, that kind of stuff. And recently was purchased in 2023 by Igneo Infrastructure Funds, which is a global private equity firm. That's when I joined the team shortly after that acquisition, and we've been chartered a new CEO, COO, me, and CIO, and Chief Revenue Officer, basically a whole new C team to come in to grow and build the business. And so we've been expanding in data centers, expanding in fiber, which are two core competencies. So we have 16 data centers right now with two under construction. And then we have 9,500 route mile fiber network today and growing. So we're building about 1,200 miles right now, mainly for the hyperscalers, very different than we had in the past, very dense AI focused fiber. And then we also have some close core competencies that go with that in cloud and managed services and revolving that. And look forward to chatting a little bit about the cloud stuff we're working on right now, because I think it's timely in the industry, which is good. Timing is always like, if you want to have success, timing and luck, I mean, they definitely play a factor into it.
Okay, so now that you've invested in data infrastructure and launched new services over the past year, what differentiates US Signal from other service providers?
Yeah, I mean, the core of the business has always been the customer support, and that's like the biggest thing we pride ourselves on. I mean, I think that's number one for me, which was really interesting. I mean, I knew US Signal being in the industry for my life, and I always heard they had great customer support, and then I got to see it when we got here. I mean, like the one instance that we always talk about is we always tell our customers, hey, you can call our number, and you're going to get a live human within 30 seconds. And I run the support team, and I was a little nervous about that 30 seconds thing, but it's actually a metric and a KPI that we monitor, and it's pretty accurate that you're actually going to get a human that can help you within 30 seconds. So if you have a network issue, a cloud issue, a data center issue, whatever it might be, because they do pop up, you're going to get a human on the phone and chatting with you, and I think that's big. And the second thing I'd go right along with that customer support is the innovation that we're focused on. And I think that leads to a happy employee as well when you're going and you're innovating and you're creating some new stuff. So we've been very busy on the innovation front. We have a Nutanix cloud offering that's going really well. We have this open cloud product that's all built on open source that's going really well. We're adding security services every day. So it's fun new technology. So, the customer support side's huge, but then that employee engagement and like wanting to come to work and wanting to do cool stuff, those two things I think really differentiate us.
Eric, US Signal makes a great case study in the impact of high performance, highly scalable enterprise storage technology. What does US Signal's success with the InfiniBox solution say about that business value and the technical value that Infinidat offers to CIOs of a service provider like US Signal,
Well,
as well as the CIOs of large enterprises?
yeah. So when you look at it, Bill, in addition to our service provider business, which by the way is 31% of our customer count, and we publicly announced. It's not 31% of our revenue because we deal mostly with global Fortune 1000. But if you just count who buys from us, 31% are in the service provider space from the small, right? So we've got a couple that are like 102 million USD. And then we've got bigger ones like US Signal that are, in the billions, but they're not Microsoft, right? They're not Amazon, right? They're not Google. And the reason the service provider community uses us is we provide that rock solid foundation which they can build services on, whether that be such as a service that John hinted about, their new cloud service, which is built on open source technology, whether it be more traditional, VMware as a service, infrastructure as a service, backup, storage. We even have a couple CSPs who do nothing but provide healthcare as a service. They provide healthcare software to smaller hospitals and smaller clinics. And that's a very heavily regulated space because it's healthcare, right? So even though they're a service provider, they have to adhere to all these various regulations. So the reason they go with us is twofold. A, this rock solid foundation of storage that just runs and runs and runs, if you will, like those old Energizer Bunny commercials. That's
Yes.
what we do. We have several public references, both our own and the Gartner Peer Insights, that talk about we've had an InfiniBox or an InfiniGuard for 2, 3, 4 years, and other than the initial installation, we haven't touched it since then. For example, at US Signal, they have 2 admins for over 27 petabytes. That's very unusual. We have another customer in the UK, a global Fortune 500, and they have just over 100 petabytes of Infinidat with 4 admins. Before us, they had a different storage company. They had 75 petabytes, less petabytes, but they had 11 admins. 11 admins running 75 petabytes. Now you've got 100 petabytes of Infinidat with only 4. So that to them gives them financial security because they're billing for services and they're up against the big guys. So anything we do to cut their management capability, make sure they're always up and running. And we infuse everything, as you know, with our award-winning InfiniSafe cyber storage technology, because service providers can be attacked just like any corporate end user can. And then if you look at our corporate side, 90% are running a private cloud. There's almost no one doing it old school. So as John said, he was in it in the private cloud days. And I remember when I was at EMC, we did a whole thing where our CIO went on a speaking tour, and I'm talking the CIO now, not the product side of EMC. And the reason he did was because EMC was one of the first corporate public clouds that was totally done internally. EMC's CIO did all the work. We didn't use a service provider. But he went on this road show, and all these CIO magazines and all these guys were inviting him because it was a private cloud. So the corporate side for us is, in that 95% running corporate private cloud. So we're good for that, but we've been especially strong with the CSP, MSP, MHP community over the years because they don't have a jillion engineers like Microsoft does or Amazon, and they want the engineering and technical teams they do have focusing on services that drive revenue, not, well, wait a second, why don't we buy these components and build our own storage array, which is, by the way, what Amazon and Microsoft do. They don't use us or any of our large competitors. They don't use IBM storage. They don't use EMC. They don't use HP. They don't do that. They build their own. And small providers, that's very difficult to do and still maintain, as John pointed out, the incredible support and service they offer and offer new services, right? One cloud is new and they want to keep offering additional new things. And you can't do that if you're worried about your infrastructure.
So, John, if a CIO is interested in purchasing services from your company for their enterprise, what's the one thing you want them to remember about US Signal as they go through the process?
That's an interesting question. So I think for us right now, the way we're positioning, especially if you're looking at open cloud, I mean it's a disruptor, and that when you have any type of disruption or anything that's unique in the marketplace, it's going to take some faith to go and understand and say, all right, I'm going to run my business on this. And I was actually with a customer yesterday in Dallas, and we were kind of talking about open cloud. We were talking about the product, and it was the same objections we always get. All right, well, this is open source is new. Okay, so how are you going to support it? And we went through and we talked through like how our support works. We have a company called Shape Blue that backstops us when we get in trouble. And then they say, all right, well, this seems like it's a pet project. What gear are you running this on? And then we go through and we tell them it's all enterprise gear. I mean, it's Dell servers, it's Arista networking, it's Infinidat storage. And then it's the same thing. It's like, all right, well then, there's no way you're going to be, more performant or better cost than the public cloud providers. So that's going to be your issue. And we said, oh, we actually had a third party do performance testing against us. Here's the analysis. Go to the website and look at it. And the one yesterday was, specifically, and this isn't a setup, but like they said, all right, well, the storage can't, we need to run our Oracle databases and everything there. There's no way the storage will handle it. And so I pulled up the IO performance benchmarking and I said, all right, you're at Azure today, and we're actually beating them. And that's it all, it's all Infinidat at the back end. But it's there, and then there's like, all right, well, the pricing's not, going to be the same then, because there has to be something wrong, right? Because you got to pick at it, and it's good diligence. And then I pull up, we wrote a pricing calculator so you can import your inventory and put it in. And I showed an example pricing, and it came in half the cost of Azure, and they're like, well, there has to be something wrong. And so the CIOs, one big thing that I want to tell them is like, it's okay to be different right now. Like yes, we have been in the cloud space for a while. Yes, we've been in this infrastructure as a service space for a while. There is new innovation happening and there is new thoughts happening right now. And this multi-cloud world is real. And if you don't believe me, go look at AWS, go look at Azure. They have tools to run multi-cloud. If you're running in Azure, you can use Azure Arc today to use all of the same, logins and everything into your Azure portal and manage virtual machines that are living in another cloud. AWS has IAM roles or IAM Access Anywhere, I think it's called, or IAM Access Anywhere, I think it's called. And you can go and run your AWS console and you could put management on VMs living in another site. So we are pivoting right now, and like CIOs need to be bold about this. They need to realize that the game is changing. And Broadcom, as much as it's in the news, it was the catalyst for this change. And so now is the time not to do the same thing over and over again, because your peers, they're starting to look. They're starting to say, "Oh, I could save a few bucks there. I could get better performance. My employees might be able to stop spending all their time focusing on something that's not exactly critical to our business, but like we could focus on strategic stuff instead, because keeping a VM up and running and making sure backups happening, that's not going to, impact our business in a big strategic way, but that AI project will." And so, that to just kind of recap that, like CIOs, you can do something different. CTOs, you can do something different. There are alternatives out there, and it's not a bad time to take a chance, because there's a lot of disruption in the industry right now.
Let's go a little deeper into that then, John. If US Signal has gained a significant competitive edge in the US market while trying to shake things up in cloud services by improving that customer cloud experience, how then is US Signal leading the way for change in the cloud hosting market? And what value are you offering to enterprise customers?
Yeah, the way we want to kind of lead and the way we want to push is like, for us, if we have customers satisfied with their solution and they feel like, okay, I'm paying a good price for it, I'm getting a good SLA, I'm getting a good return on my investment, they're going to continue to stay with us long term, and they're going to be, great partners, as we kind of go and innovate in the future. And so we have focused our time on that, and we want to make sure that we're providing, a great 100% SLA on the products we're providing. We're providing that service that is just going to work and allow you to innovate. Because if you look at the next 10 years, the winners of the next 10 years are going to be the people that are innovating right now to get ahead of their competitors. And so to do that, the stuff that today is maybe taking up a lot of your IT budget and taking up a lot of your time, you got to shrink it. And those are the two facets that we're focused on right now. If we can make things easy and turnkey to provide infrastructure as a service, and then make sure that we can support it, make sure we have the SLA on it, it's going to allow you to do so many cool things in your business and allow you to innovate and obviously AI is the biggest focus on everybody's plate right now because it creates an impact. And if you can go and tune your team to, yesterday I was at a global manufacturing company, and if they can save 1%, because they have a new AI project out there, that's big money for them to allow them to innovate into their core business. And so, that's really where we're focused at. We're not trying to boil the ocean. We are trying to be that foundational layer, that infrastructure layer that you need to run your business. And we just want it to be easy. And if you think about, your life, you know, you think about the water and the that you have coming to your house and the sewage and all those other things, like you just spend you pay the bill and I auto pay it, so I don't even think about it every day. And like that's really where we want to be, but also we want to help them innovate for the future, and we listen to our customers. I mean, we a lot of what we built, especially open cloud, was based on our customers being really upset with not having another option and disruption in their business. And so they got a bill and it's like 4x the cost to stay in VMware, and they're like, well, this doesn't make any sense for us anymore. And so, that's a disruption of a foundational environment. And we just, our core belief is that that should be easy, not hard.
Eric, US Signal selected Infinidat to provide the enterprise-grade storage solution that is critical for their business as a digital infrastructure provider. What has Infinidat provided to US Signal, and how has Infinidat been able to support US Signal's strategy to deliver a true private cloud experience?
So, a couple things. First of all, from a technology perspective, while we still support VMware, I can't call it Broadcom since it used to be VMware when I was at EMC. Just can't call it Broadcom. Sorry, Broadcom employees, but we support VMware great. Even before the Broadcom acquisition, we were already making sure that things that were on alternative platforms, aka containers, whether that be open source based, whether that be solution based, for example, Red Hat, we're certified with Red Hat OpenShift. Red Hat just had the Red Hat Summit. We were a guest speaker. And Red Hat in a couple months is doing a public webinar and they've asked us to speak. So yes, we supported the VMware, but we've done everything we can as the world has morphed. And of course, Broadcom has helped it a lot. US Signal took advantage of it. We have a bunch of our enterprise customers doing the same thing. They're still using VMware. 95% of our customers on the corporate side use it, but there are gobs of them starting to move to containers. So we made sure technologically we'd support that. Second thing is all about what we do to offer that rock solid foundation. Okay. We have a triple active controller architecture. No one else has that. Okay. We do very large capacity. We're high-end enterprise focused. 70% because of our AI-based built technology inside the array. Forget that we support AI workloads, which we do that too. But built into the array, 70% of the tech support problems are solved by us before the customer even knows about it. Okay. We also provide all our customers, including US Signal, what we call a technical advisor. They're not tech support. The technical advisor's job is support applications, workloads, and use cases. We have a separate tech support team, and unlike other storage vendors, we don't have level 1 and level 2 tech support. You go right to level 3. So our average tech support engineer has been doing technical support in storage at the enterprise level for at least 10 years. So there's nothing wrong with a young, fresh kid out of college, but it's a big difference if you've got a problem and you're talking to someone on the phone or exchanging texts or emails with someone who actually has been doing it for 10 years or more. So that's support and service. And in fact, on the end user side, we won the Gartner Peer Insights Customer's Choice Award 7 times. And that's not Gartner analysts. Those are end users, enterprise end users who rate you. And then all Gartner does is make sure it's not John and I sitting around smoking cigars, writing reviews of Infinidat. They validate that it's truly this account, this account. So that's what Gartner does. But they validate that it's a legit end user. We have received that award 7 times. So that's the customer saying it, not me. That's customers saying it. So that support and service level is highlighted heavily. The rock solid foundation that Peer Insights is also heavily cited. the thing that, again, several of the peer insights say we've had an InfiniBox or an InfiniGuard, our purpose-built backup appliance, for 3, 4, 5 years. It's never gone down one time, not even once. We have some other public reference who said that. So that's why, from a service provider, it's really important, because if they're down, they can't bill, right? If your power goes out at your house, I happen to be on the West Coast, I'm in Silicon Valley, so we're PG&E. If the power goes out for 3 days, I don't get billed for those 3 days. It's zero. In the service provider community, they are basically exactly like the power company or the phone company. If your phone went out for 3 days, I happen to be AT&T, but there's other phone carriers all over the world. They can't bill you legally, at least in the States, they can't legally bill you for that. So that's exactly how the service providers operate. So from their perspective, that's what they want, that rock solid foundation. Particularly, again, we sell mostly to small and medium cloud providers. I think our biggest cloud provider is probably 7, 8 billion, right? But they can't hire 1,000 engineers to do what Amazon does. They want their technical team focused on, as John pointed out, one cloud and new solutions and the cyber stuff that John's talking about. So they're talking about delivering customer value, not doing the back end. And same thing, John's got a server vendor. They love that server vendor. They're not trying to build a white box server through distribution. But by the way, that is exactly what Microsoft and Amazon and Google do. But for the people in John's space and the even smaller guys than John, it makes no sense to do that. So that's why we've done so well with that space. And obviously, since the bulk of our customers are global Fortune 500s, they know they're getting, for example, 28% of the Fortune 50 are customers of Infinidat. The fact that the biggest companies in the world are choosing us shows that we've hit that niche, and our support and service is unmatched and is cited, like I said, in the peer insights, why they think, in addition to the technology that we do, is just that support and service level, the white glove, so to speak,
Yeah.
is so much higher than everybody else.
So, John, what was US Signal's criteria for an enterprise storage solution, and why did you pick Infinidat?
Well, that's a very interesting question. So they went through a pretty deep in storage selection before I got there, and we we have other arrays on the floor right now. So there was some, it took a few times till we got to Infinidat. But when I first got there in 23, it was probably about a month in, I think, yeah, because I got there in July and it was probably August. They gave me a PO for a few $1 million in Infinidat, and I was like, I don't know about this. I never used them before. I looked at them once at my old gig, probably back in 2018, 2019, and I didn't select them then, and so they were already pretty deep and married to Infinidat. So I was like, I gotta check these guys out before I think it was like a $10 million PO they wanted me to sign. I was like, I just not there. And so I called our sales rep and I told him, I said, hey, look, you got to kind of give me the dog and pony here. I'm brand new into this. I know we have existing arrays already. I've used a lot of other vendors in my life. I got to get comfortable with Infinidat as a business. And so I flew up to Boston, spent a day with the team, met all of the like the heads of technology and the product, and super impressed. Looked at how they were supporting us in the past. I asked them to pull all of our tickets we've ever had, all of our hardware failures, all of our maintenance items. Where are we falling down, because we had a significant amount of Infinidat on there. So the proof should be there if there's a problem. And they pulled up, and Eric would tell you, they pulled up a website. They had all of our arrays inside of it. They looked at all the support issues we've ever had, which were very little, and showed kind of like, all right, how they've been doing as a business with us. And then I looked at their roadmap and how they were operating, their sands, and like what they were doing that was unique. And I've spent my life in storage. I mean, we were one of very large consumers of Dell Equalogics and Dell Compellents, and so like I know those things inside and out, and worked with EMC engineers. Didn't know Eric, but I worked with a lot of EMC engineers on what their future was looking like. So I have a deep storage background, and I just was continually impressed with where Infinidat was going, the efficiencies, how they were actually pulling performance out of the boxes. And we were using all the hybrid arrays, and we still have a whole bunch of hybrid arrays on there. And like the performance out of those and the IO, I was like, okay, pretty impressive. So when we were going and building open cloud, we went through the same thing, and we pulled in all the big vendors. I mean, everybody, And we put them in our lab and we did a bake off, and we were looking at performance, and we would look at, what would a large sequential look like? What would what would a heavy random, workload look like? Heavy writes. I mean, we would create all these profiles and we ran all these IO tools against them to kind of see who would stack up. And then we looked at the price side of it and then the performance side of it. And every time we did that, every time we brought in another array to the fold, I mean, it was like Fight Club, right? We'd bring them in and we would run the same workbench, the test benches against them, and Infinidat kept rising to the top. And then when you look at like the partnership side of it from, the sales team, we have a great sales rep that supports us, great solution architect. It was kind of a no-brainer. And so, we did heavy diligence on them, and we pulled all the known name brands, even some new ones that were coming to market. And we even looked at like building storage ourselves, because I mean, we have the background, we know how to do it. We thought through every aspect and angle of it, and Infinidat just kept rising to the top. And then the one challenge that we had is just kind of, okay, we're starting this thing off small, like how do we kind of go and scale? And Infinidat came to us with a really interesting business model that we can go and put the array on the floor, and then we kind of grow in chunks with them, and because you can actually scale out the physical nodes inside of it. And so that was something we were able to do. It was able to get us off the ground, and it's been, knock on wood. I always hate talking about performance and support and stuff like that publicly, but it's been solid for us, and I hope it continues that way.
Eric, I'll give you the final word then. How would you surmise what you and John have talked about here today?
Well, the key thing is about supporting your customers properly, whether we do it, what John does. It's being on the leading edge. I may be almost 70 years old. I've done 8 startups. John laughs every time I say I'm almost 70 years old. I spoke at their sales meeting. I was running around like a wild Italian. I'm half Italian. And he goes, "Wow, you're 70?" I said, "Yes." But
A lot of energy for 70.
yes, you got to always change. Okay. The world thrives on change. Who would have thought that the iPhone is more powerful than the first 7 generations of the IBM mainframe? Never would have thought that, right?
Yeah.
Who would have thought about the iPhone? Well, wait a second. That's kind of like the Star Trek communicator, right? So the world is always changing. So when they went and wanted to do the open source, we said, no problem. They're not using, a packaged up. They're doing their own, if you will, what I call roll your own. We said, don't worry, we support the package guys. We're certified. Don't worry, we can help you, right? So we like to work with companies that are moving forward. And when you look beyond the customer base, like John, with our technical alliance partners, Veeam, Commvault, what we do with Red Hat, what we do with SAP, Oracle, all the various technical alliance partners we work with, we're always trying to follow them with their new stuff. The old stuff that's nice, okay? But the idea here is to focus on the new stuff. And that's what we like to do. And me personally, I've done 8 startups. Yes, I was at IBM twice. I was at EMC, but I like to do the cool, if you will, as we say in California, the cool bitchin' startups, right? And that's what US Signal does. And we like to support our enterprise accounts for them moving to containers. If you think about, your reader base, right? The global Fortune 2000 CIOs and CTOs and CISOs, like, we're going to containers. We've been on VMware for ages. Whoa, we shouldn't do that. But John is offering that kind of solution that is innovative and leadership. And that's what we like to do. And then we back it up with the support and service. That is one of the things why we've been so successful in that global Fortune 1000. As other people have stubbed their toe on support and service, we have not. And we maintained it. I remember when I was talking to an old EMC customer of mine who's now an Infinidat customer, and I said, yeah, we provide a technical advisor at no charge. So as John will tell you, Nitsan, who's the technical advisor for him, we don't say, John, you have to pay us for the technical advisor like monthly. We don't do that. It's all bundled in. And as John pointed out, we were very cost effective on the bid when they did the comparison, as well as winning the performance side. So that's what we do. It keeps us differentiated. Our differentiation is very similar to what John and US Signal are doing in an incredibly crowded cloud space dominated by Google, Microsoft, and Amazon. So you got to really differentiate. We're the same thing. We're in a storage market that's mature and dominated by what I like to call the Godzillas of the world. and we're still able to step around Godzilla. We're still able to offer real value, and we're able to have giant customers as well as what we do with the service providers to offer value. So I think that's the key takeaway, not only for what we do, but clearly what US Signal is doing with this innovative stuff. And they got some stuff coming on the security side as well. So they got a lot of new cool stuff that whether you're a small customer, Herzog's Bar and Grill, or whether you're a global Fortune 500, you can take advantage of what US Signal offers.
Right, we'll wrap it there. Both of you, thank you very much for that.
Thanks,
Great,
Bill.
Bill. Thank you very much for including us. We really appreciate it.